What's up, everyone? This is Carlos, and I'm going to be doing a little video maybe to help some people out. This is my 2022 Heritage Softail Classic. It's got the 114 on it. I have installed a few upgrades on this bike. Motor-wise or performance-wise, I've got the Arlen Ness 22-degree air filter. I have a Vance & Hines Pro Pipe on it that I have slightly modified. I cut part of the PCX baffle out just to make it sound a little bit better. And I currently have a Fuel Pack 4, Vance & Hines Fuel Pack 4 fuel tuner. But today I'm going to be installing the ThunderMax tuner. Now the ThunderMax tuner does replace your ECU with a whole new ECU, and it uses the wideband O2 sensors. So this thing is supposed to be able to auto-tune itself continually over and over, and I've heard a lot of good things. By far not a cheap upgrade. This thing is upwards of about $1,100. So today I'm going to be installing it, but I'm going to be doing a step-by-step video, kind of cutting in and out. And the very first thing that I wanted to talk about first and foremost is, if you're thinking about going with the ThunderMax, whether it's on your Softail or whether it's on any bike, you do need to be conscious of the O2 sensors. So let me give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about. This is my current O2 sensor, and you can see by comparison with my finger how small the O2 sensor is. This is the 12mm O2 sensor. It's much smaller than what we're going to install. Here's the other one in the rear pipe, right in there. And where you have to be careful is depending on what pipe you have. These are the new O2 sensors. Again, I'll hold my finger. They are at least twice the size, if not more. So if you don't have enough clearance here, for example, and more importantly here, for example, it'll hit your transmission cover or your fins or anything. I've already checked and mine's going to clear. I checked before I purchased it, but and I'm 99% sure it's going to clear. But you know, not everyone has this particular pipe. So I've heard some issues with some thrashing pipes. I've heard some issues with some other brand pipes that installing the ThunderMax poses a big problem, because the O2 sensors won't go in the, even though the pipes might accept 18mm bungs or sensors, wideband sensors, they just won't fit because it'll hit the engine case somewhere. So do your research before, otherwise you might have to either get a different exhaust, or you might have to modify your pipes and add, plug up the current bung port, and add a new one in a relocated area. Hopefully I don't have that problem. I will say I'm really happy with the performance of the 114. I do plan to add a cam later, maybe next year. Next season. It's beautiful right now in upstate New York, but it's about 48 degrees, and it won't be long before the snow flies. So this is kind of like the beginning of my winter project. I want to have the ECM. I wanted to have the new ECM, the ThunderMax, installed so that I could think about a cam next season. And the good thing is, with this ThunderMax, you do not have to worry about retuning it. This will pick up a new cam. You install a new tune via the computer. It's got a data port. So let's kind of check it out. I'll show you guys real quick. It comes with, of course, the ECU module and 2 O2 ports. And we'll flip this over and show. Sorry, I am not a videographer, guys. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm just doing this to help. So bear with me on my videography skills here. Of course, your instruction manual with your data cable that plugs into the USB on your computer. You have your labeled front and rear O2 ports that go to the data cable, and of course the other side of this will plug into the O2 sensors that are on the other side where I showed first. A lot of people make this mistake. I've seen a few videos. It does come with this little bracket that installs on your bike, and then like your ports and plugs that you remove, and I'll show that later on, plug into this. A lot of guys don't install this, and they just kind of tuck their wiring in there, I've seen, and that's why I wanted to do this video, to kind of show, you know, I guess how to do it right, or how I would do it. I'm just an average end user. I don't really work on my bikes past, you know, regular maintenance, you know, do my own oil, do my own upkeep and maintenance. I'm going to take a stab at doing a cam next year. So I'm still researching that. But I have installed a couple of ECUs. I have installed some wiring and bars and stuff like that. So I think I can tackle this job. So unfortunately, though, I do need to remove my pipes, which I was kind of hoping I wouldn't have to do. But this one I can probably get out. There ain't no way that I'm getting this O2 sensor out and the new one in without marring up or scratching up. And as you guys can see, I do keep my bike in pretty much pristine condition all the time. So I'm going to go ahead and, on the safe side, remove the pipes so I can get the new sensors on. I'll do a comparison of the two sizes of the sensors after, so you guys can really see what I'm talking about. And I'll be back. So I'm going to remove the pipes and I'll be back with the next segment. Okay guys, I'm back. So I have removed the exhaust. It's over here, it's in pieces obviously, and I've taken out the O2 sensor. So when you buy certain pipes, like this Vance & Hines pipe is one of them, they are able to accept the 18 millimeter or the 12 millimeter O2 sensor. So obviously if you just try and plug in your stock O2 sensor, it kind of dances in there, it won't fit. So they give you this little adapter that you then can screw on here, screw in here, that converts it from 18 to 12 so that the smaller sensor can fit in. So, you know, I'm not sure if all exhaust manufacturers take into consideration the positioning of these holes, of these bung holes for the sensors in comparison to what someone might want to do. You would think that they would take that into consideration so it doesn't hit your engine case or your oil filter or anything like that. But I can tell you that there is at least one model thrashing pipe that will hit here and your transmission case because of the position of the O2 sensors, or where they plug into, in other words. So also to show you guys, again, this is the stock O2 sensor. Let me show you the difference here, guys, of what here is in comparison to this, how much bigger it is. This is the wideband sensor on the right, the stock sensor on the left. So it is considerably larger, as you can see. So you do have to be careful and make sure that your pipes, when you install these on your pipes, that it will clear and not hit something, you know, the frame, the oil filter, the engine casing, transmission cover, fins, anything like that. In my case, I think I'm okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and install these larger O2 sensors on my pipes. And then I'm going to go ahead and fit just the normal part of the pipe onto the bike, just to make sure everything clears. Once I've got that done, I will go ahead and install the rest of the pipe back on there. And we'll continue with the install. One thing that I do want to note is ThunderMax gives you some plugs. These plugs. These guys right here, and they want you to plug your O2 sensors. So your stock O2 sensor here, this guy here, disconnects, and then the other part of this is still on the bike, obviously. To avoid going through all this wiring mess of detangling all that, and to also be able to use in the future your stock O2 sensors, like if you wanted to take your bike to Harley to diagnose it, or for whatever reason we're going off of the ThunderMax back to your stock, you want to be able to have that where you can reuse it. So I'm going to give you guys an example. This port is where my rear O2 sensor plugged in. It went from here and it plugged in right here, and then it went into the pipe. Obviously it was sitting right here. They want you to use this plug, this little plug, to plug this so that, you know, there's no elements getting in there. And as you can see, there's just like no way. Like, look how small this plug is compared to that. So even if I tried to stretch it all the way, it is a rubber plug. There ain't no way it fits inside it. There's no way it's gonna plug that cap that off, nor is it gonna do it to the one in the front. So I'm gonna use something else. I'm going to use some electrical tape for right now and tuck it back in there real nice. And we'll continue with the install. So again, I'm going to put on the larger O2 sensors now, start routing everything, throw the pipes back on, make sure everything clears, and then we will continue with the install of the tuner, which is going to be obviously on the other side, the left side of the bike. So I will be back. Alright guys, so I have got the exhaust back on, everything but the heat shields, which I'll do last. I just wanted to show you did have to, or more importantly, these are the new O2 sensors. They are bigger, so the front one clear with no problem. The back one also no problem. I got lucky. It's not hitting the transmission cover or the engine case. Did have to remove my exhaust, but it was, not a big deal. This is that plug. I taped it off with some electrical tape. I think it's going to hold up pretty well based on where it is and really how clean I keep my bike. There's probably nothing going to get in there. So then I went ahead and started taking off. Obviously, I removed the side cover on this side. And let's see if I can show this. I apologize, guys. Okay, this is the stock ECU, and it went in here in this cavity. It was not easy to get it out of here. This is the connector for it, this big thing here. So just pretend it's in there, and then this is the caddy that goes in there. Wasn't really that tough. One bolt that you remove the one bolt that goes right here. It's a 10 millimeter, I think. Well, excuse me, not a 10 millimeter. It is a 7/16. And you kind of just move this out of the way for a minute, okay? You will not reuse this part. There's a part that they include, so I'll show that as well. Take this off, and then you just have to kind of wiggle and finagle it out of here. I did have to disconnect it first. It would not come out if I didn't disconnect it. So again, stock ECU. Here is my ThunderMax ECU, which I now will slide in this cavity, connect the connector to, and I'll show you guys when it's all buttoned up. Really a cinch. On the 22 Softail that I have, Heritage Softail, you just kind of pull up on this lever and it releases your connector. So again, apologize for the video quality, but just trying to give you guys a little tutorial here of what I'm doing. So I'm going to put the new ECU in. I'll show that once it's connected. Again, the old one kind of sits in that cavity. I'll put the new one in and show that. Okay guys, I'm back again, and I've got now the ThunderMax ECU in there. It mounted perfectly to the locations and clips of the old ECU. I mean, it's in there just as good as the old one. This connection right here, this connection, the main harness to the ECU, was kind of a pain to get in. It was hard. I mean, I had to like get it just right to put it in here while the ECU is already in the cavity. If you do it out here and then try and stick it in there with this connected, no way it's happening. It's just impossible. So you slide this in first, and then while it's not clipped into the clips, right, there's some clips that hold it in place. There's one in the back, two on the bottom, and this big one up top. That black part is a clip. You can see it on the lip of the ECU there. So it goes in there, but you have to kind of put it in the cavity while it's loose in here, and then connect this, and then put it on the clips. Fairly easy. You slide it underneath the top clip, and you just push in, and it'll clip in place. Now, instead of this big plastic piece right here that's stock, they give you this thing, okay? And when you put this on, right, it goes kind of like, sits in there like this, and they give you a bolt that goes through that hole. They give you a new bolt. It's a Torx bolt with a washer. So the bolt that you originally removed here, which goes in that hole right there, right, holds this cavity there. Goes in there and holds this thing. You're going to get rid of this thing and bolt this on here. However, there's a problem. This, when bolted on, covers your USB port. If you slide this thing over, right? This slides over, and then you have, you know, little dust cover that's there. That's part of it as well, that little dust cover. But you have, that's where you plug in your data port for your computer to download your tunes and everything, or to set up the bike. And then once you set it up with a canned tune that matches your setup, there's hundreds of them in there, you go for a ride and then it just auto tunes. Every time you shut off the bike, it rewrites the tune to the ECM, and it, you know, kind of keeps continually tuning the bike. So you got to be able to access that. So I'm going to go ahead and button up my O2 connect, my oxygen sensor connectors, my O2 sensor connectors, and twist tie everything up. And then I'll come back. I'm going to go ahead and connect my USB port, connect my computer, and download, download the tune to the bike. I'll maybe see if I can video that. But you have to do all that before you button this up and put this new caddy on, because it will block the USB port, which I think is really stupid. I don't think it blocks it fully. So once I have everything on, I'll go ahead and show you guys, and you be the judge. Maybe, you know, you're able to use it without, but I'm not going to go through that pain of trying to connect the cable in there after the caddy and all this is on there. But essentially there is a space on the caddy, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, perfectly fit on there. So I'll show that all buttoned up, but first I'm going to connect everything up, twist tie all my oxygen sensors on the other side of the bike, and throw a tune on this thing with my computer. And then after all that, I'll button this up and I'll show it kind of before I put the side covers back on. So again, I hope this is helping. Your connector for your connection for your O2 sensors kind of comes out of the ECU right there, up through here, and then you've got obviously a front and a rear connector. I'll show you, this one's like, this one says rear and then the other one says front, and that will connect, of course, to the 18 millimeter O2 sensors that here's one here from the rear cylinder. So I'll button all that up, I'll kind of show you guys where I routed it, and I'll be back. Okay, final part of the install, guys. Tuner's installed. I installed the caddy that came with it, the smaller one, which allowed this connection, these three connections, excuse me, to kind of sit there as they would stock. You do get rid of this on the soft tail. You get rid of this big clunky one, replace it with the smaller one, and everything sits nicely in there. This is where the USB port is down here. You can see up in there. You slide that little metal piece over, and there's a little black dust cover underneath it. You can see that. You remove that, there's a USB connection. So, you know, you would need to remove this one bolt and get these three connections out of the way real quick to access it in the future. I did, if you wanted to, you shouldn't have to with this ThunderMax, because you load a base map, which I have done now, and you ride it. And every time you ride the bike, it just rewrites the values that it learned from the previous ride. Every time you turn off the ignition, it rewrites the values when you turn the ignition back on, and it just keeps learning over and over and over. So I'm really looking forward to how it works. Loading the map was really easy. If you're comfortable enough to install it, I'm sure you're comfortable enough to get on the computer and download a map. It's really easy software to use. And it took about maybe 10 minutes to do the entire flash and everything. So that was easy. One other thing I'll talk about is the routing. So the harness for the O2 sensors comes out of the module here, comes out of the ECM here, and I couldn't figure out how to go this way and, you know, get through this mess with the shock there. It was almost like it was impossible. So I went across, and I went over, obviously, so it wouldn't be underneath where the shock is exposed. My seat will not hit this. I've already confirmed that. Then after I went across here, I went in through here, and obviously I zip tied it away so it couldn't be near the shock. There wasn't any slack. I went in through here, across, and came out here. And this is like some of the wiring here. This is where my rear O2 sensor is now. Obviously, same spot. It came out. I kind of let the cable loop. Sorry about my videoing skills, guys. And I just zip tied it right here. I might button that up a little bit better, but for right now it's good. And then that comes out into this cluster here of wiring that I zip tied together. The front one, this is the one that loops here. It comes down, goes down that way, all the way down and around, and that's where I connected it, right underneath here. And you know, it's pretty secure right now. I zip tied it in a couple different places, and then that goes along the front right to the front O2 sensor there. Pretty easy to do, nothing crazy. I did idle the bike after I flashed the map. I can already tell it idles much more smoother. Unfortunately, it's 10:30 here now because I've been on and off this job all day. And it's 10:30 here now, so I'm not gonna rip my loud ass bike across the neighborhood at this hour. So I'll take a ride on it tomorrow, but I can already tell it idles more smooth. I'm excited, and we'll see how this goes. That'll be the last part of the video. Is kind of like my initial reaction. I'll probably go for a 20, 30, 40 mile ride tomorrow and turn the bike off. I should rewrite the learned values from the from that ride. And then I'll ride home, and I should notice what they say is, almost immediate improvement. Every time you ride, it should get a little bit better until it's really dialed in. So I will check back in for the conclusion of this video after I've had a chance to ride it tomorrow. So we'll see you then. All right, guys, I'm back. There she is. There's Josie. She's all buttoned up. I took her out for a ride. You'll see it's just getting dark here in upstate New York. Took her out for a ride. Well, basically flashed the map. Got everything buttoned up. Just the base map that was closest to my configuration. They didn't have the Vance and Hines Pro Pipe, but they had a D&D Fat Cat on there, which is a 2-in-1, very similar setup. So I chose that and flashed it. Turned the bike on, let it idle for 15 seconds like they recommend. Shut it off, and then turned it back on and went for a ride. Immediately when I just went down the street, I noticed that it was just a little bit smoother on the throttle. So I went for about, I would say 39, 40 miles and shut the bike off, stopped, shut the bike off. Turned it back on, went for another ride, rode another, I don't know, 25, 35 miles or so, shut it off, turned it back on, and then I just drove about 40 miles back, and then shut it off right before I got maybe 3 miles from my house, turned it back on, and then rode home. I can tell you, I'm not sure if it's a placebo effect. I don't know, but I think this thing does do what it advertises. I felt like every ride was better. So a couple other things that are gone. When I would crack my throttle, because I changed my intake, I went with the Arlen Ness. I don't know if you guys can see that. I went with the Arlen Ness 22 degree. Ever since I did that, when I would crack my throttle every once in a while, I would get a ping on the left side, almost like I don't know if it's the automatic compression releases or if it's something else going on with my injectors. I don't know. Or if it was spitting out of the air cleaner, which I don't think, but it was just weird. And I would crack my throttle, and that would happen. Another thing that would happen is if I would be idling down, coming to a stop at like a red light, I would crack the throttle and it would do that again. And now when I crack the throttle at any particular moment, idle, not idle, I mean, it's just ultra responsive. It just wants to just rev. And I can crack my throttle, 3 times in a row if I'm idling, and I get no hesitation at all. That is like the biggest thing that I noticed. And then lastly, when I would be going down the road before, and I had again, an FP4, and I had it tuned. I sent my map to Vance and Hines. They modified it and downloaded me their updated version, and then I auto-tuned it with the Vance and Hines Fuel Pack 4 from there, and it ran pretty good. But when I was going down the road, if I was going about 50 and I'm in 5th gear or 4th gear and I let off and then I get back on it, it would feel really, really jerky, like just jerk, you know, it was bad. It's the only thing I didn't like. And going to this ThunderMax, that is all gone now. Every time I roll on the throttle or I crack on the throttle, it's just smooth. It's just, I'm really looking forward to some longer rides and how much more this thing's going to improve. But I hope this video helps somebody. I just wanted to go. I'm not a YouTuber or a videographer or anybody that does this for a living. There wasn't a lot of good videos about the install and some of the things that you might run into. So I thought I'd do that, and I hope this video helps somebody. Rubber down the road, guys.